Identity is a funny thing. We spend our whole lives building it, polishing it, protecting it, performing it. For years, mine was neatly summed up in 2 letters, HR. Hi, I'm Trina, I work in HR. And people would usually respond with one of 2 things, either a nervous laugh and a, oh God, don't fire me, or a polite but slightly terrified smile. But lately, I've been wondering, who are we really when the job title fades? What does it mean to be an HR professional in modern times, when the work we do is both deeply human and maddeningly bureaucratic, and when our own sense of self can get lost somewhere between the policies and the people? Welcome to Reimagining HR with Trina Sunday, the rule-breaking podcast where we challenge our thinking and our current people practices. This podcast is for time-poor HR teams and business leaders who are feeling the burn, lacking laughs, and not feeling the love. I'm Trina, your host, and I'm here to cut through the BS, explore different ways of thinking, and create high-impact HR functions. Because happier, healthier organisations are better for our people and our bottom line. So if you are keen to flip traditional HR on its head, hit the follow or subscribe button so you're the first to know when new episodes drop. I'm here to help and also to shake things up. So let's get started. So let's start with a story, my story. Once upon a time, because all good identity stories start that way, I was a hardworking HR professional climbing the ladder, chasing the next promotion, and living by the sacred creed of busy equals important. I genuinely believed that success came from working harder than everyone else. That's how I was raised. My parents built that work ethic into me. If you weren't exhausted, you probably weren't trying hard enough. And for a long time, that worked until it didn't. Because somewhere along the line, I realized that my self-worth was completely wrapped up in how hard I worked. It still is, if I'm being honest. And if something felt easy, I'd get suspicious, like, hang on, Trina, you can't possibly be doing this right. It's not painful enough. Then came the approach to burnout, the disillusionment, the sense that maybe, just maybe, this thing called HR, the thing I'd built my whole identity around, wasn't feeding my soul anymore. So I did something radical and I moved to Cambodia. And here's the kicker. I was the happiest I'd ever been, lowest pay I'd ever earned, highest joy I'd ever felt. I saw people living full, connected lives with a fraction of the stuff we chase in corporate Australia. I saw joy that wasn't tethered to KPIs, community that didn't need team building offsites. It was confronting and liberating all at once because I realised I'd been mistaking hard work for meaningful work. And the difference? One drains you and the other fills you. When I came back to Australia, I carried a new truth with me, that when work feels light, it doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you're in flow. It means you're using your gifts, your energy, your purpose, not grinding through someone else's definition of effort. But that's a tough lesson when you've inadvertently been raised to believe worth equals work ethic. When I first started Reimagine HR, I had to rewire that belief because in my corporate days, I was often told that I cared too much or that I was a bit too straight talking. Translation, you're human, please be less of that. Now, those same qualities, the heart, the humour, the candour, are the heartbeat of my business. They're what connect me to people. They're what makes Trina Sunday different from Reimagine HR. And that difference matters because it's proof that identity and authenticity don't need to be sterilised to be professional. We HR folk are notorious for identity crises. We talk about culture, purpose, and belonging all day. But ask an HR professional what their purpose is, and you'll often get a slightly panicked look like a deer in the headlights. Are we the fun police, the fixers, the feelers, the ones everyone comes to when there's a problem, but nobody invites to Friday drinks? So, spoiler alert, we have amazing Friday drinks that we organise ourselves. We've built this profession on care, but often at the expense of ourselves. And I spoke about that in our last episode. And that's the tension, isn't it? We identify as helpers, protectors, people. But if your whole sense of worth is wrapped up in being needed, then what happens when you're not? That question hit me really hard when I met a senior HR leader recently during a recruitment process. Let's call him David. Now, David had applied for over 70 jobs. 70. And he hadn't been shortlisted for most. And when he finally got to interview, he told us on the panel straight up, I know my age is against me. You could hear the hurt in his voice. This was a man who was his job title, a lifetime of HR leadership, and yet he couldn't get a look in. It was heartbreaking because I could see his value, I could see his wisdom. But I could also see how his identity had become fixed around the version of HR that the market had moved past. And that's why I reached out to him afterwards to unpack it with him, not as a candidate, but as a fellow human. Because this isn't just a recruitment story, it's an identity story. We talk so much about purpose and culture fit, but we rarely help people reframe who they are when the world shifts underneath them. So if I zoom out for a second, because this whole who am I at work question, it's not just philosophical, right? It's psychological, emotional, and deeply practical. Employee identity is the bridge between who we are as humans and who we are as professionals. And researchers say it's shaped by 4 bonds. Emotional bonds, which is how connected and valued you feel. Cognitive bonds, how you make sense of your role and purpose. Social bonds, which are your relationships and sense of belonging. And digital identity, how you show up in systems and online spaces. And when those bonds are strong, people thrive. When they're not, we see disengagement, confusion, burnout, and that quiet question, why the hell am I even here? And the timing matters too. Most of our professional identity forms in the first 90 days of a new job, which means onboarding isn't just about systems access, it's about belonging. So if someone joins your team and spends their first week trying to figure out where they fit, you've already lost half the battle. Think about the last time you felt truly seen at work, not for your output, but for your essence. You know, that feeling, that's belonging, right? And it fuels performance more powerfully than any bonus ever could. And when people feel safe to be themselves, they take smart risks, they speak up, they innovate, and they also stay longer. Harvard research shows this. It shows that teams with higher psychological safety are more innovative, collaborative, and high-performing. And Amy Edmondson's done huge work on this. And Gallup's global data tells us that companies with strong culture and belonging experience, 72% higher engagement and 40% lower turnover. Belonging isn't soft, right? It's strategic. And you would have heard me talk about that before. When people know who they are, identity, and why they matter, they work differently. They stop performing for approval and they start contributing from purpose. And I think about this a lot when I look at people transitioning out of work, into retirement or away from long-term careers, especially true for our veterans coming out of the military. But my husband, who I've talked about before, I'm sure, Coach Sunday, he used to be a professional footballer. When he retired, he struggled. His identity had been wrapped up in being the player. Then suddenly it was gone. That transition was hard. But what's amazing is watching him now. He's found a new identity as a coach, shaping young players, not by telling them how to win, but how to try, and to be honest, how to lose. And the feedback he gets from parents and from the kids, magic. They say things like, he changed the way my kid sees the game, but more importantly, he changed the way my kid sees themselves, and now they have more confidence. That's impact. And his identity reframed in an instant, because he's no longer defining success by medals and that kind of thing, the accolades, but by transformation, by who these kids are becoming because of how he shows up. And I think we can learn a lot from that in HR. Our job isn't just to make people perform better. It's to help them see themselves differently at work. Let's talk about this buzzword though, authenticity. It's everywhere. Be authentic. Bring your whole self to work. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We actually don't want everyone's full authenticity at work. Because what if someone's authentic self is narcissistic, cruel, or toxic? Surely there's got to be a thing such as positive authenticity. Is that even a thing? Authenticity doesn't mean unfiltered. It means aligned, acting in ways that are consistent with your values and respectful of others. And organisations that get this right balance individuality with shared purpose. They say, yes, be yourself, but be your best self. And that's the sweet spot where belonging and accountability can meet. And if we talk about Gen Z for a minute, they're rewriting the rule book on this. Like 81% of Gen Z workers expect complete workplace transparency. And they're not just talking about pay. They want to know the why behind decisions and whether company values actually match the actions. And despite the remote work revolution, 57% of Gen Z say they prefer in-person roles because they actually do crave community and connection. But they're also not chasing traditional leadership titles. Only 6% of Gen Z prioritise executive status in their future planning, how they identify their future selves. They want to blend their lives, not balance them. And for them, gross generalisation here, authenticity means alignment across all the spaces, home, work, and purpose. And maybe they're onto something, right? Because the old model of work over here, life over there, it just doesn't fit anymore. We all know what identity misalignment feels like. You walk into work and it's like wearing someone else's clothes. They're too tight, they're too itchy, they're just not you. The symptoms? You disengage in meetings, you stop speaking up, you feel like you're just doing your time. And here's the thing, the problem usually isn't you. It's the mismatch between your values and the organisation's. And studies show that only 46% of employees report having clarity about workplace expectations. Clarity is king. And just 39% feel genuinely cared for by their organisation. That's horrific. So it's no wonder so many people are quietly disengaged. And the fix? Start with conversations that connect what people care about with why the organisation exists. That's when the spark comes back, because people can finally see themselves in the story again. They can identify. So maybe this is our moment as HR professionals to reimagine our own identity, to stop defining ourselves by policies, projects, and job titles, CHRO, CPO, the debate continues, and start defining ourselves by the impact we have and the humanity we bring. Our profession's evolving, like from administrators to architects of culture, from enforcers to the enablers of belonging. And yeah, it's messy, but it's also magic. We're not just HR. We're story shapers, bridge builders, professional hope dealers. Be a dealer in a good way. And maybe the next evolution of HR isn't about technology or transformation. It's about truth and rediscovering the heart beneath the hard work. Before you go, a final reflection on this. So, who are you? Really, without the job title? When the org chart disappears, when the inbox stops pinging, and no one's calling you as the go-to HR guru, who's left? If that question feels uncomfortable, good. It means you're paying attention. Because identity isn't fixed, it's fluid. And the more we allow ourselves to evolve, the more powerful we become, not just in work, but in life. And maybe that's the real work of HR, not just helping people do better, but helping them be better, more whole, more human, more heart-aligned. And if we can do that, maybe, just maybe, the next generation won't have to unlearn that success only counts when it hurts. Imagine that. Thanks for tuning in and leaning in to this week's episode as we look to reimagine how we show up for our people, organisations and community. Reach out to us via our website at reimaginehr.com.au with your HR horror stories or suggestions of people you'd love to hear from or topics you want to explore. It's all about people, purpose and impact, and we are here for all of it. Until next time, take care, team.